Bombshell tonight, TV and movie star Hayden Panettiere, neighbor, hears crying and screaming before the star's death. This, as we learn, her HOA Homeowners Association had actually put up posters, notices to block her boyfriend from getting in the building. Why? We also learned tonight, according to reports,
she was found unresponsive on a Sunday morning.
Sadly, Hayden was found unresponsive on Sunday in an apartment in Greenville, South Carolina.
The Narcan was administered after she was already dead, and her boyfriend allegedly pawned her belongings before she died. 3 facts. 3 separate pieces of a puzzle that, when placed together, paint a picture of something far darker than an accidental overdose. This is the story of Hayden Panettiere. Not the celebrity, not the actress, but the woman trapped in a cycle of addiction, abuse, and exploitation, and the man at the center of it all. Before we go deeper into what the evidence actually shows, make sure you're subscribed to Crime Nest Media, because we don't just cover the story, we follow the facts. The visual anchor for this case is a vintage guitar. It meant something to her. It was hers, and it ended up in a pawn shop. That guitar represents everything Brian Hickerson took from her. Not just money, not just belongings, her dignity, her safety, her life. And when you understand what that guitar meant, you understand the entire story. Hayden Panettiere was a child star. She was famous before she could drive. She was on television screens across America before she understood what fame would cost her. And like so many child actors, she was thrown aside when Hollywood found someone younger. She struggled with addiction. She struggled with money. She struggled with the weight of a life lived in public, and then she met Brian Hickerson. Brian was her on-again, off-again boyfriend. He had a criminal record. He had a history of domestic violence. He had pleaded no contest to charges related to abuse. And Hayden's mother has spoken about how Hickerson emotionally and physically damaged her daughter for years. She described Hayden as depleted in every way, financially, emotionally, physically.
Right? Dr. Bethany, do you know one of the things the boyfriend pawned was her vintage guitar? That probably meant something to her, sentimentally.
You know, people who commit financial fraud, they also hate their victims, okay? They feel that the victims have it coming to them. Nancy, he wasn't just a boyfriend, he stalked her. Let's just be clear. He stalked her, he beat her, he took her money, and as you're saying, pointing out, he pawned her vintage guitar. And what does it mean when you pawn something? When you pawn something, you're desperate for cash right away. You're going to give it to the pawn shop for pennies on the dollar. And this is one of the things that underlies addiction, is the need to get that fixed.
The phrase that keeps coming back is this: he drained her dry. Not just her bank account, not just her will to fight. Everything. The morning of her death, the story starts falling apart immediately. The brother, Zach Hickerson, arrives at the apartment after receiving no response to his texts. He finds Brian just waking up.
His brother gave us a statement that he texted Brian and Hayden on that Sunday morning, last Sunday, and didn't get a response, went to this Airbnb where they were, and then found Brian, who had just woken up, and Hayden laying in a bed. And Brian then administered Narcan to her.
Okay.
He finds Hayden in a bed, and then Brian administers Narcan.
What we're actually being told is what Zach Hickerson, the brother of Brian Hickerson, Hayden's on and off again boyfriend, that the Narcan was found on the bed, and that according to Zach, his brother Brian had used the Narcan on Hayden. Now, Narcan is...
The timeline doesn't make sense. The brother says he found Brian waking up. Then he says Brian administered Narcan. How do you wake up and immediately know someone needs Narcan? How do you just wake up and your partner is dead beside you? The inconsistencies are everywhere.
Because there's a lot of stuff in there, and a lot of it doesn't add up. Initially, we were told that she was found in a chair. Now we're being told that she was in the bed. And so I want these people to keep talking to TMZ.
One story places her in a chair. Another story places her in a bed. One story says she was getting ready, doing her makeup. Another story says she was already gone. Dr. William Moroney, a renowned medical examiner and opioid expert, explained the science simply. Narcan only works if it gets into the bloodstream.
It's quite clear it follows the time path of heroin, fentanyl, or opiate use. You're up early, you're getting ready, and then you take a nap. No, that's falling out. They probably used together, and she might have got more than him, and he woke up and she didn't. That happens all the time. It sounds like an opiate use, somebody with substance use disorder and a partner follow this timeline. He's bigger, whatever they snort, whatever they smoke, whatever they inject. They said there was no trauma after the autopsy, but the timeline fits opiate use. And then why else do you have this? Why do you have this if that's not an opiate use?
If circulation has stopped, it does nothing. You might as well administer it to a phone. He believes the Narcan was given after she was already dead.
Yes,
Speak English,
that's
man.
Exactly what I mean. She was dead, and this whole thing was a drama. That's what I think.
Okay, wait a minute. What do you mean by she was dead and this whole thing was a drama?
You use opiates and you fall out, you get sleep, you wake up, and somebody else is dead, but you're alive, and you have to do something, and the procedure, the timeline doesn't fit that she was savable. She was not savable.
How is Narcan supposed to work? It did not work. It did not save Hayden Panettiere's life. How is it supposed to work? You firmly believe it was administered after she's dead. Well,
yes.
I might as well administer it to that phone right there.
That it was a performance, a drama, something staged to make it look like an attempt was made. The police seized surveillance footage from the apartment complex.
The cameras have been seized around that apartment complex. So sources are telling me that the police have taken all that footage. So they'll be able to see exactly who left, what time they returned, and if they did go to a pharmacy, if they did go to a CVS to pick up Narcan, that will be on the cameras too. And so they can say whatever they want at the moment. Let them keep saying it. The evidence is what's going to tell us what really happened, and that evidence is going to be cameras, it's going to be cell phones, it's going to be electronic communications. I'm told that the police know a lot more than we do, and they're just not saying at the moment. That's not that unusual, Nancy. What people say to the press is often very different than what they say to the police.
They know who left. They know what time. They know if anyone went to a pharmacy. They know a lot more than they're saying. And that's the gap. That's the space where the cover-up lives. But the most telling detail is the pawn shop. Her mother confirmed that Hickerson pawned Hayden's belongings to get
the
cash.
boyfriend, who was not a suspect or person of interest tonight, pawning Hayden's items, her belongings, before her death. Dave Mack, Crime Stories, can you tell me about that?
Yes, Nancy. Hayden's estranged mother, Leslie Vogel, says that Leslie came out to L.A. about a year ago to help Hayden get through a serious health issue, and claiming that Hayden was suffering from some unexplained pain in her lower back. And it was at that point where Leslie Vogel says that Brian Hickerson had emotionally and physically damaged Hayden Panettiere for years, and she was depleted in every way, financially, emotionally, physically, and that Brian Hickerson pawned items of Hayden Panettiere to get cash.
Her vintage guitar, items that meant something to her. He was desperate for money. He was addicted. He was draining her. And 3 days before she died, a judge denied his request to have his domestic violence charges expunged.
I mean, he abused Hayden. That was well documented in Hayden's biography. He's been convicted. He pleaded no contest in 2021. And what's really interesting, Nancy, is that just the week prior to Hayden passing away, he actually put in a request with the court to have his charges expunged. And the judge actually denied it because he said, I'm not allowing that to be expunged because you've continued to be high. And they actually pointed out to that TMZ interview that you played earlier that showed that he was not in a good state. So why would they expunge the charges in that case? And that what the judge decided was decided just 3 days.
The reason? He was still high. The evidence of his behavior was still visible. He couldn't even pretend to be sober for a court hearing. He was that far gone. And then there's the interview, the one where he appears clearly intoxicated.
My biggest thing about domestic violence is I don't think it is taught early enough in life. Never in my life did I ever get taught what domestic violence was, right? Maybe if I did at an early age, maybe I wouldn't have done what I did. I mean, I went into such a dark place, man. Drugs, alcohol, abuse. Good God Almighty. She's 5'2" on paper, 4'11" in real life. I mean, come on. It's a terrible thing I did to her, but yeah, you know, she's love of the life, love of the life. So,
the one where he says if someone had taught him about domestic violence, maybe he wouldn't have done what he did. He distances himself from the violence.
Well, first of all, you're right.
Did you hear that? Why
Yes,
isn't
I
anybody
did.
upset?
Yeah.
She's dead. That boyfriend wakes up in the bed and goes, oh, she's dead. How can that happen? And it's the same boyfriend that admits he beat her to smithereens. She got taken out on a gurney.
What he says is if somebody had told me about domestic violence, he's trying to distance himself from domestic violence as if he didn't do it. But then later he goes on to admit.
Why do you even keep saying that, Bethany? Why do you keep calling it domestic violence? That's certainly putting perfume on the pig, right? When people say domestic homicide, domestic, it sounds like a Hallmark movie. Domestic. I think of the kitchen table and good smells from supper and a little family sitting around the table holding hands like on the Waltons saying their prayer before dinner. That's not what
he calls it domestic violence, like it's something that happened to him, not something he inflicted. He says he beat her.
did it.
He did it. He beat her. He hurt her. He administered opioids to her. But then later on in that interview where he's clearly high, he does say, well, maybe I did it. And did you see the look on the interviewer's face? I mean, she's just giving him the side eye there, shocked at how high he is.
He says he did terrible things, but he frames it as a tragedy he couldn't control, a darkness that overtook him. The damning phrase that echoes through this entire narrative is simple, repeated, undeniable. He drained her dry.
Dr. Bethany Marshall, not only a renowned psychoanalyst, but the daughter to missionaries who go around the world spreading the gospel. It just breaks my heart to hear Pastor Dylan Novak speaking about Hayden, searching. We're all seekers, right? We're all seeking. But to know that she was searching and seeking the gospel, but before she could find any peace in this world, she died. And it just, all of these leeches sucking her blood, sucking her dry.
Not just her money, not just her spirit, everything. Dr. Bethany Marshall, a psychoanalyst, explained the pattern. People who commit financial fraud often hate their victims. They believe the victims have it coming to them. And Hickerson didn't just take her money. He stalked her. He beat her.
Wait a minute.
This is a brawl outside of a very fancy hotel
Sunset
in Los
Marquis,
Angeles.
man. It's famous.
And that person there in the white sweater, that is Hayden Panettiere in the middle of a just crazy brawl that went down last night that started in the bar at this hotel.
You see, that's Brian in the white sweater who just got hit. Now someone's on top of him, and Hayden isn't walking away from this. She is right there trying to pull people off of Brian. She gets knocked over. This is crazy. And
at one point in that,
bedlam.
guys, it looks like she even took a foot to the face, too. It looks like she got kicked. I mean...
Oh, the life that Hayden had been dragged.
He took her vintage guitar. The pawning is not just a detail. It is a window into his desperation, his addiction, his complete disregard for her as a person. The ticking clock moment arrives when you realize the timeline that morning. She was doing her makeup at 10:30. She was supposed to meet his brother for lunch. He steps out to get something? What was it? Did he go to get Narcan before she needed it? Was he planning to use with her? Did he know she was going to overdose? The unanswered questions pile up, and each one points to the same conclusion. He knows more than he is saying. The case is still being investigated. No charges have been filed. No one has been named a person of interest. But the evidence is mounting. Surveillance footage, phone records, pawnshop receipts, the autopsy, the toxicology, the swab from her nose that will show whether the Narcan was ever actually absorbed. The DEA is involved now. That's not a detail you ignore. When the Federal Drug Enforcement Agency gets involved in a celebrity death, it means something significant has been found. The brothers' statements have been inconsistent. He said Brian was waking up. He said Brian administered Narcan. Both things can't be true in the way he described them. If Brian was just waking up, how did he know to administer Narcan? If Brian was awake, why was the brother the one who called for help? The story doesn't hold together. And then there is the relationship itself. Brian found Hayden at a vulnerable time in her life. He inserted himself. He took control. He took her money, he took her guitar, and he took her life. The question is not whether he was abusive. The evidence of that is clear. The question is whether he knew what was happening when she died. Whether he chose not to act, whether the Narcan was a prop, a cover, a performance. The court records from this case are partially sealed, but the domestic violence conviction and the expungement request are public. Search the Greenville County court system. Read the filings. Look at the timeline. Look at the denial just 3 days before her death. And then ask yourself one question in the comments. If he pawned her belongings before she died, what else was he willing to take? If this story taught you something, then like, share, and subscribe to Crime Nest Media. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next deep dive. Because the evidence is always there. The question is whether you are willing to follow it.